right now, what would serve you better, a calming breathwork practice or a stimulating breathwork practice? I'd say the majority of people probably wouldn't know. Even like I have friends who have 3-year-olds and they do little things like when there's anger, we take a big deep breath. And if we got taught that,
how different
would we have had the same experiences and challenges that we had?
That's wicked. I want to go for the people listening and watching this right now that are sitting there and they're like, oh, you know, I'd love to start trying things. What would be your sort of like 3 main basic breathworks which people can do, and after watching this, just go and start straight away? What would they be?
So I'm going to throw a curveball in the mix, which is actually, it's not a breathwork technique, but I'd say it's the thing that I am kind of prescribing the most with my private clients, and people just, it's coming up the most in conversation when I'm sort of boring people to death with this stuff, which is basically an exploration and an analysis of your own nervous system. So sounds jargony and a bit fancy, but actually all I mean is most of us are so disconnected from our bodies that if I were to ask you right now, what would serve you better, a calming breathwork practice or a stimulating breathwork practice? I'd say the majority of people probably wouldn't know because they don't know the current state of their nervous system. Do they need a bit of a boost in energy and activation because they're in a bit of a shutdown state? Or do they actually need to calm down because they're in a really highly activated state? And so that to me is the first step to building a really effective breathwork practice, is actually going, okay, guys, where are you at right now? And from there, what do you need? And really prescribing, again, in quite a tailored way, something that works. So that, I guess, is a little kind of seed to plant with people. And then in terms of tangible techniques, I think the 3, we'll go with 3. The first would be an extended exhale breath, which is very, very simple. So it'd be slow breath in through the nose and then blowing the exhale slowly out of the mouth, looking to make your exhale longer than your inhale. Simple reason for that is that the exhale acts like a brake pedal on your nervous system. So it's going to lower your heart rate. It's going to move you into what we call the parasympathetic response, which is rest and digest within the nervous system. What happens is as we inhale, our heart rate slightly speeds up. And as we exhale, heart rate slightly slows down. So if we make the exhale longer, we're going to bring ourselves right down. Heart rate's going to slow. I did a little experiment on myself with my Whoop not long ago. And in 60 seconds of doing that breath, my heart rate went from 92 to 58, which is, you know, as good a proof as you can get in terms of just the simplicity of how this works with our physiology. Second would be the physiological sigh. So this is Andrew Huberman, although he's been cancelled. Andrew Huberman's favorite technique. I still like it. Yeah. The physiological sigh has been shown really to be the kind of quickest, most effective way to quickly reset the nervous system. So it's a deep breath in through the nose, second smaller inhale, and then a sigh out. So you can do 3 to 5 of those for just like a quick reset. And then the third one would be, I think, box breathing. Great for those mini combat zones. You know, it's the meeting, it's the public speaking gig, it's the podcast, it's the road rage, you know, all of these little things where you just can't help. And this is the other thing, right? This isn't about always being calm. This is actually about just managing your state. You know, there's stuff that's always going to be outside of our control. You know, people that can't drive, people that cut you up, you know, stressful things are going to happen. So what tools do you have at your disposal to optimize your response to that? Because, you know, if we're just in reactive kind of red brain mode where it's just, you know, kind
can't think straight,
weapons free, you just can't think straight, and it's just you're going to be trigger happy. Let's take the Navy SEAL example. Like, it's such a good analogy for life. Like, that's why they do it, because if they go in and someone kicks a can over in the corner, they spin and just shoot their mate and it's over. And that's kind of what we're doing when we're reacting. We're just kind of, you know, mowing people down emotionally without realizing, and there's no space before we kind of have that reaction.
It's funny, whilst you were talking, I don't know if you were doing this or anyone behind the cameras, I was consciously trying to be aware of my breath. It makes you realize how we don't think about it regularly enough. And for something that happens 20,000 times a day, it's amazing how I just don't consciously think about my breathing and where I'm at with it. So whilst you were talking there, I found myself consciously trying to breathe in those patterns, and it's amazing how little we are consciously aware of thinking about doing it, which is, quite a scary thing, actually, how we're
Yeah,
not taught.
one of the really annoying things about being mates with me is just like people are just like, oh, it's so aware.
But it's so important
breathing. Like,
because we're not taught about it. For all the things at school that you're not taught about,
right.
or you just, it's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's not talked about.
100%. It's something. It's kind of a new strand of my work that I'm spending a lot of time thinking and working on in the background right now. Is the education system, parents, children, because my stepdaughter's 6, and like seeing her respond to this stuff, like they're so malleable, they're so they take it all in.
Sponge.
And like they're such sponges.
Yeah.
Even like I have friends who have 3-year-olds and they do little things like when there's anger, we take a big deep breath. And if we got taught that,
how different would it be?
We have had
Yeah.
the same experiences and challenges that we had? Maybe, but we would have had a toolkit and like
I coped better.
It's an ingrained understanding of emotional regulation and how it's, if there's one thing that I could teach everyone from an early age, it would be that. And I think we also, and this is where the parents come into it, because everyone wants to be a better parent. I don't think it's probably a 1% population of awful people that don't give a crap about parenting. But everybody else is doing their best, but we get blocked from doing our best by our own stress and by our own inability to manage ourselves. We become less, we become less than who we want to be as a parent if we're not managing our own state. And so actually we have to start with the parents as well as working with the kids, because then it becomes this lovely kind of symbiotic relationship where, a parent who is regulated will have a much more regulated child without even trying. And so it's about that kind of personal responsibility piece to go, okay, I want to be a positive influence. I want to support myself. And in doing so, kind of support everyone around me, my kids, everyone that I kind of encounter. And I think that's what I always think about when I start getting all philosophical, is every interaction you have is the start of a chain reaction. If I'm leery and rude to Joe when we leave, he stands a much higher chance of being leery and rude to the next person he bumps into. Whereas if, you have a positive, calm interaction with somebody who's maybe expecting something a bit spiky, you bump into someone, instead of going, "Oi, what are you doing?" You go, "Oh, sorry, mate, didn't mean to bump into you there. I hope you have a good day." They're then in a completely different mindset, and that filters out to everywhere. And so that's where I think, we can often get so blinkered and so caught up in a very narrow view of the world, but actually it all matters. It all counts in terms of how we manage ourselves, because that, it's that classic quote. Again, can't remember who. I think
Just say
it's
you.
like if you want to change the world, change yourself. Work on yourself first. So yeah,
I love that. A lot of the parents that work with Anxend, so Anxend will have parent coaching and child coaching as well. So on the two sides of the mental health anxiety ladder, a lot of the parents, when you listen to testimonials, it's actually very emotional. They're like, we just didn't have the tools to know what we were doing. We were trying our best. We thought we were doing that. If you could give your advice on the breathwork side for these parents, of after they've listened to this, after they've watched this on YouTube or Spotify, wherever it is, that they can just take into their life and go back to their kids and try something new, what would that be?
A broad answer would be lead by example. I think, again, seeing my friends who are parents and my partner's daughter, you often think they're not going to pay any attention to this. They're not watching. They're watching everything, even if they're not aware of the fact that they're watching. The behavior that you model will be reflected right back at you. You are, as we've all experienced, kind of the rise and fall of thinking your parents are a superhero, and then later life realizing that they're just human. But that's pretty amazing in its own right. But especially at a young age, you are everything to them. And so if they see you going, and being open as well, like how much do we wish our parents were more open about what they were feeling when we were growing up? Saying, I'm feeling, a bit stressed today. I'm going to sit down, and do 5 minutes of breathing. Do you want to join me? And they might say no. And I've had that no a number of times. And I start doing it, and within 2 minutes, they're sat next to me. And they're doing it as well, because they feed off. I see it all the time. It's not a great comparison of comparing kids to animals, but dogs and cats, when I'm working with clients online, the number of times I've guided someone into a really kind of deep, calm state through their breath, and their dog comes and sits on their lap, or their cat comes and sits next to them. They feed off it. We all feed off of each other's kind of nervous systems, and kids are so open and almost vulnerable to that in a positive way or in a negative way if it's the wrong kind of feedback. And so I think that leading by example piece is the overarching, and then not overcomplicating it. Taking something like that extended exhale breath, and anyone, hopefully anyone after this conversation would be able to understand that making your exhale longer than your inhale is a route into calm. And so if you can do that as an adult and communicate that to your child, I think again we multiply that benefit factor, and we get a much kind of what I kind of dream of, a much calmer society. So
The thing I love what you said about there is how it won't be easy. No question, you'll have people that will struggle more than others. The fact that it's so readily available, it's free, and you do it from the comfort of your own home, it's seemingly quite an easy concept behind it. And I think everyone can do it. Like you say, it's for everyone and anyone to be able to do that. So I think that it's that in a world where everything is so hard and not easily accessible or expensive, or some people can have it, some people can't. This is something for everyone to be able to do. So it's quite exciting to be able to think that once it is out there and accessible in homes and schools, and it's huge.
Yeah, it's a great point, because that's why I do what I do. And in the same vein, I get really frustrated because sometimes if something is too simple and too accessible, we reject it, because how could something that simple possibly be that powerful? And that to me is, I sometimes stand on my soapbox and I talk about breathwork as this missing pillar of health. We talk about nutrition, it's on the news, it's in policy. We talk about, exercise, it's in policy, it's in the research. Breathing comes before all of that, which is why we haven't looked at it.
Yeah.
It's why we're not paying attention to it. And so actually, why have we missed? Understandably, we've missed it, because it's my least favorite breathwork cliche. It's right under our noses, right? I hate it. Cut that out. But
Say it again.
because it is it's there. It's so present. That we do underestimate it.
Yeah.
But I do think we're now seeing enough of a movement where it's a bit, it's hard to ignore now in terms of the research, in terms of the conversation. I've had conversations at kind of not putting stuff into policy, but at the level of kind of government and policy to actually go, okay, how could we go about this? And it's nice to see an interest, at least a curiosity. Which
people taking notice.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones that, again, it's just become impossible to ignore it.
Good.
So I do think we're on the way to somewhere. I think it'll be small steps, but I do feel like we're on the way to something much more
I really
impactful.
hope so. Mate, this has been one of the best chats I've ever had in my life. Before we end, could you just run us through a quick exercise, so that the listeners and viewers can join on with, and
Sure.
That have listened all the way through? I just think it would be amazing if you could run us through a demonstration.
Definitely.
Joe and I will join in as well. I might move the mic, so it'll just be Joe and I.
No snoring. Okay. Yeah. So what I think we'll actually do is just work through the 3 techniques that I mentioned. So actually just 3 to 5 rounds of each one. So for anybody listening, for you guys here, we'll just get comfortable sitting down and just close the eyes if that feels comfortable for you. And we're actually going to start with that first tip that I gave, which is really about tuning in and checking in with the current state of your nervous system, of your body, of your mind. So just take a moment here as you find a little bit of stillness as you close the eyes, just to notice how you're feeling. Notice any sensations, any thoughts, any narratives that are popping up, any emotions that might be there. Maybe just taking a slow scan through the body, checking in at each point, noticing whatever you can feel. And then just turning your attention to the breath, starting to notice how you're breathing naturally. What's the natural flow of the breath doing? And we're going to start with that physiological sigh. So that's going to be a double inhale through the nose, followed by a gentle sigh out of the mouth. So we'll take that first deep inhale down into the belly. Second smaller inhale and release. And again, breathing in, topping it up and letting it go. One more like that, deeply in. And again. And release. Good. Allow the breath to come back to the nose and start to breathe a little bit more slowly, a little bit more deeply, a little bit more intentionally. Feel the belly rise as you breathe in and softly, gently fall as you breathe out. And then we're going to take 5 rounds of that extended exhale breath. It's going to be a deep, slow, gentle breath in through the nose, and then we're going to blow the exhale slowly out like you're blowing through a small straw. So taking that first deep, slow breath in, and then blowing that exhale out, extending the out breath. Okay, we'll take 4 more like that in your own time. Just allow that exhale to act as that brake pedal, just to slow everything right down. Allow your shoulders to drop. Allow everything to soften here with each exhale. You've got 3 more here. Last 2. Last 1 here, and then we're going to move into just 2 rounds of box breathing. It's going to be a 4-second inhale, 4-second hold, 4-second exhale, 4-second hold. So following my count, we'll just do 2 cycles of this, breathing in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathing in, holding at the top, exhale, and holding at the bottom here. And at the end of this hold, just take a nice deep full breath in through the nose now with me. Gentle sigh out of the mouth. Let the breath come back to neutral. Let go of any sense of control over it, and keeping the eyes closed for just a moment here, checking in with how you feel. And then whenever you're ready, you can just gently blink open the eyes.
That was nuts. That was so good.
Jeez.
Absolutely love that.
Mate, that
Genuinely
was
absolutely
insane.
love that.
How are we feeling?
That was
I
amazing.
feel really spaced out.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That was wicked.
That was
really,
awesome.
really cool.
Man, thank you so much for that. That was
Needed
literally the
that.
sickest thing.
All good. All good.
That was
Awesome. Thanks,
amazing.
man. Appreciate it.